Okay, Teresa's jumping in. Hi, Connor. Hi, good to see you. Okay, we'll just wait. Oh, Teresa's here now. Hi, Teresa. Welcome.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, clearly.
You. I'm still waiting for my laptop to come back from repairs.
Oh, wow. You've had so many dramas with that laptop.
I know. It's
Wow.
like, oh, I'm over it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway.
Okay. Hopefully it gets sorted this time around.
Yes, definitely. Either they give me a new one or they repair it or something or other.
Yeah. Something. Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. We might. I'll just see if anyone else is ready
Yeah, I'll
to
be right
come.
back. I just got to do one or two things.
Okay. Judith is arriving. We'll just wait for Judith to arrive and then we'll make a start.
It looks like most of the people here have already got heaps of experience. So I was actually pitching the presentation to people who would be coming when I was working on site at an elderly people's hostel, to students who'd be coming to be doing clinical sort of supervision, or just joining my session. Yeah. Hello, Judith.
Hi, Diana. How are you?
Good.
Good.
So I'm sorry if it's not pitched correctly, but that's what I understood.
It'll be so fun. And it's always a mixed bag of people who come along. So sometimes it is trainees and then, long time DMTs with a lot of experience, but it's all part of the community and we so welcome you here today, Bouthasina. Thank you for being here and thank you for offering to talk to us about the benefits and challenges of working in an aged care facility. I'm sure there'll be information from your depth of experience that we can all learn from and gain insights from. So welcome and thank you. And this session is being recorded, so it will be available to our trainees, and that is the main purpose of us, why we initiated these conversations, so that they get an insight into how other people are working in the field. So thank you, and over to you.
Thanks, Angela. And hello, everyone. Connor, especially I know, and Maeve and Teresa and Jennifer, I've just met and knew. Pleased to meet you. All right. Well, I thought that the topic I would share today would be let me see, here we go. The benefits and challenges of working in an aged care facility and maintaining yourself and your enthusiasm in the workplace, and what DMT can offer this population. So it's a pretty scattered topic. It's a wide topic, but it is a topic that spoke to me in terms of what my needs were when I was working with this population. So I hope it'll be of use to you. So working in an aged care home, what attracted me to it was the fact that I grew up with my own grandmother in the home. My mother worked as a dressmaker in the house, and she had my grandmother there. So we grew up with her around, and it was a very important sort of deep experience of having an elderly person in the household sharing their experiences, but generally about the atmosphere that an elderly person creates of that continuity. And I guess I really cherished that, and I wanted to share with that population what I could give, which was dance. So looking at benefits of working in an aged care home, especially when starting out, I think it's a terrific place to start a career in dance therapy because you're surrounded by a team of people working towards the same goal. So it's very safe in that sense. I know some of Jennifer, you mentioned that you are not working in an aged care home, but hopefully there are people supporting your work around, and that's what you'd want. It's a safe and supportive place to start working. It's a gentle and mostly pleasant population to work with. Of course, they're experiencing great difficulties, or maybe it may be things like dementia or pain, which we'll speak about later. Your work will make a difference, and I think that's something you really need to always affirm to yourself, and you will see as well. Your client population is already available and close at hand, located in one building, and you don't need to hire or pay for a dance space. And there are work opportunities available out there, and they are paid. I think there's awareness of the value of the arts now amongst that population, amongst in aged care generally, in maintaining the quality of aged care. I think there is recognition of the value of the arts and things like art therapy and dance therapy. And you don't need to advertise your session, of course. Often the coordinator will do it for you. So I just thought I'd share the two only pictures that I can share because I've got permission of me in an aged care home, and you can see that the response of the client there, simply by blowing bubbles, the excitement in her body, and also the mirroring and of the blowing. And another one where I'm using cloth to create flow and connection in a group who are sort of sitting in the lounge room. Now, that's not always how they do sit in an aged care home. Sometimes an activities coordinator will place chairs in a circle, but this is a home where they were just sitting in couches. So that's how I connected the group, by a long piece of material. And there I was using the theme of water to encourage flow.
Excuse me, I can't see are you showing photos?
Yeah.
It's not coming. Is it coming up for other people or? Okay.
Everyone else can see it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, sorry you can't, Teresa. I wonder if you need to just switch off and come back in. I wonder if that will help. If all else fails.
Wipe her thing. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. It's, yeah.
Okay, so some of the challenges, I won't spend too much time on those. I think you might have already heard in your courses or experienced them. Of course, when you're in an aged care home, you're basically reliant on what the aged care home can provide you in terms of the space, and the privacy and creation of an intimate place may or may not be a problem. And the other thing is that staff, when you start off particularly, may not be aware of your work and may be breaking boundaries in your session. And if you're running a session where there's some depth achieved with clients that don't find connection easy, that can be disruptive to have people just walk in with a different energy. But generally, I think people are quite sensitive once they understand what you're doing. Your dance movement therapy work and its value may not be understood. It may be mistaken for an exercise or dance exercise session, so your work is undervalued. And I think that it really brought out practicing and really needing to consider what's the difference between like me doing exercise with elderly people and me coming in to do dance therapy? And I found that, you know, the amount of consideration and the artistry involved in the session distinguished it, because, you know, it's a dance form and that's an art, and you're looking to create beauty, elegance, or grace in that. And that is very special to being a dance therapist, isn't it? I'm sure people who have had a lot of experience would agree. So what do I meet when I enter an aged care home? Don't want to, oh, hello, Elizabeth and everyone. I just noticed there's a lot more people there.
Yes.
People who have loss of context. So entering an aged care home for me was like entering the Queen Victoria Museum, where, you know, the British Empire had collected all these different amazing monuments from different parts of the world and stuck them in a room. So they were totally out of context. It might have been a beautiful Grecian statue that had been overlooking the sea. And there it was in this room. And when I walked into that room, I felt like crying. That's how I felt going into the Queen Victoria Museum. So it's a little bit like that, going into an elderly or aged care hostel. It's people are out of context. And if you consider that whole aspect of what we are is really so deeply connected with the relationships that we create, that we're a person because of the people around us, essentially, which is that beautiful concept, Ubuntu, which they have in South Africa. It's a lovely understanding of what a human being is. That an aged person is actually taken out of their context, taken out of anything about their history and whatever made them the person that they are, and placed in a home with a whole lot of people their age. And that's basically the only similarity. Individuals with less energy, of course, because that's what happens to us. Restricted movements, and importantly, hearing loss when you're, hearing loss when you're trying to communicate like what you're doing. So you need to keep that in mind. Pain, they're all the things that you meet. Institutionalized in individuals, so people who need to eat at a particular time, get dressed at a particular time, and that takes away their sense of individuality and can make it feel impersonal and dehumanizing. So it might be that you meet uninterested people who are not interested in engaging or disaffected because they're angry that they're there, or they might not understand why they're there, and they can be generally resistant to anything offered until they get to know you. And often it's individuals who are deteriorating physically and mentally. And you might even, well, you will, of course, meet death there. So that is something that you need to consider, how that affects you, how you want to meet it amongst the residents, whether you want to acknowledge it or not. So they're all things that need to be considered. So one of the big challenges for me was how do I get clients to want to participate? What would make them want to come? And how do I make it relevant for them when they don't even know what dance therapy means? And I'm going to open over to you, because I think there's a lot of people here who already know and have a lot more to share than I might have. But I will also speak about this a bit later on. So just consider for yourself, if you want, being a client, how would you, what would draw you in? What would make you want to come if you were a client? Or if you work with such people, what you do? Yes? Was that someone wanting to speak? Right?
I'll say something, Bouthasina. For me, it was always about the the relationship. I think people would come as they build a relationship with me, and they would enjoy that interaction and the dancing and the having fun and a laugh and so on. So it was, building that relationship. And then I used to find people, even if I went to a centre just once a month, that people, they might not remember who I was, but they would remember the experience of what it felt like when I was there.
Yeah. And that is something about dementia, isn't it? That they might not remember the details or the actual event, but they remember the emotion. Would you say that's correct? Yeah.
Yes. And I mainly worked with people with dementia. So.
Yes. Yeah. Anybody else who works with aged care who would like to contribute?
I was just going to say, beyond that, I mean, that individual connection of just going in and greeting them and getting to know them, but music seems to be a really wonderful integrator in that environment, and especially finding out what music it is that really inspires them. I had a student a couple of years ago tell me that she initially started with what she thought were their songs and oldies, and then she decided to bring her belly dancing music in, and they loved her belly dancing music. So you never know what music can inspire, but it's part of our tools.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Music is so important. Lovely. Thank you. Anything else?
I found that the props that I brought in made a big difference as well. Some props that would be engaging and intriguing and just bring up a spontaneous urge to connect, whether it's a giant balloon or the stretchy fabrics or feathers, but something that was like familiar, where the body just knew what to do with that rather than thinking about it and interacting that way.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So basically, one way or another, we want to charm them. We want to create an atmosphere and, of course, a relationship. So that it's appealing to them. And thank you for your suggestions, everyone. So I thought at this stage I would do a bit of an experiential, and that would only be a very short one. And this is the outline, and I've written it because, as I said, I was actually targeting a group of people who would be going out newly to this sort of site. It's an experiential where that's only going to take 10 minutes. If you walk around your home and select some objects with which you can create a circle-like shape, and this will represent a safe place, a safe space for yourself. And the reason why I'm doing this is because it's always good to actually create for yourself what you want to create for your clients, and see, by sitting in that, what it feels like, and that will inform your work. Place some objects, 2 or 3, that you've collected from around the place that you are attracted to or love within that safe space, and sit within it, and draw or move with the intention of allowing a theme to emerge that will nurture and draw in an elderly group in a hostel. And feel free to use any of the things that you've collected or not. So I'm going to leave that up, but I'm going to also, for the next 10 minutes, allow you to take that time to undertake that practice. Is that okay? All right, so just walking around your home, selecting objects with which to create a circle or a circle-like shape, which will represent your safe space, placing objects in that, drawing and moving within it.
Recorded.
So just a couple more minutes. So gently bring that activity to a close for yourself. And either if you've got a pencil and paper, you might want to just jot an answer to a couple of questions. How did it feel to actually sit in the safe circle and create a theme? And what emerged that you can see would work for you with a group of this sort, with a population of this sort? And one final little question, what sort of goals or interventions or outcomes, if you like, can you see coming from those movements that you created, or that theme? Okay. And since we are just a smallish group, it would be lovely to hear something that you could share and enrich the group by with your findings. So please go ahead. Is that you?
Interesting.
Sorry, Connor. Yes, Connor.
Yeah, I had just been listening to an ADTA workshop about grief, and what really emerged for me in that was there's tremendous grief that goes on when somebody goes into a nursing home, and is it supported, and is there space for that? They have, at whatever age they're at, they have gone through multiple losses, and now they've lost their home, and bringing the objects in had this feeling to me of orientation. And so that we're trying to orient work, and when we work with the elderly, but also, you know, to really support their memories and whatever they want to share with us, because we don't care when it was. We don't care when something happened in their life, if it just emerges and they just want to share it, and, you know, us to be there for it. I mean, that's what's so wonderful about our work in dance movement therapy, I think, or one of the things. So that's kind of what was emerging for me. It was interesting how I was overwhelmed almost by the grief. And granted, I'd been stimulated in this last workshop, but still, I was like, oh, wow, okay, all right, you know, and I have worked with this population quite a long time ago, but still, I've done this work, so I know some of it. Yeah, so thank you. That's a lovely experiential.
Yeah, thank you. That's very enriching. Thank you. And Judith, I think you were going to speak, is that right? You need to unmute. Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah, there you go. That's
Yeah,
you.
okay. Sorry. My main need was really to have a sense of physical comfort, and being in a place where I had no pain. The other thing that was really important was feeling a sense of relationship. So something that I had some association with, that I could feel. And the other thing was to be able to see. So to be able to take in something from outside into me. And then I took something that I could use for music, but I realized you have music, so that was fine. I think what emerged was a sort of sense of interest, really, and coming out of the isolation, and a sense that I would be given time to just, something about just being left with the music, to just have permission just to find my own start and my own beginning to move. Yeah. And with I felt, in terms of working with people, that the strength of that was in just coming out of an isolated, solitary space to begin, being with other people. Yeah.
Absolutely, and to be witnessed in your own timing, in your own rhythm of doing that.
Yeah, yes, that was really important.
Yeah. Thank you. Is that you, Elizabeth, or sorry, I can't hear you. Can we unmute Elizabeth? I think you have to do it.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I had to go and check on my husband, which I did. So I was a bit late in the experience. But what I thought, it was, you said something about what you would like. And I went with that. And I thought, well, I went into the kitchen and around, and we've got so many beautiful things, so much mess, you know. And I thought the green apples are really important. And I do quite a bit of cooking for my husband because he had a stroke many years ago. And you know, you cook green apples in the oven, and there's only a few shops that sell those really big green ones anymore. And so I made a trio, a 3-point thing of green apples, which I try and cook up as a little quick, you know, dessert for me and for him. But I change the cream all the time. I get buller cream, or I get another sort of cream, or I get yogurt, and, you know, quite fatty things actually, but just a small amount. And that's really important to manufacture something that's instant, enjoyable. And I would imagine for old people like myself, it's a little quick recognition of the ordinary that's very enjoyable. But what I did put in was a green, lovely green hoop in the middle, because I teach adult dance, and the dancers did amazing things with these green shiny hoops I had. And somehow, and they're quite older women or middle-aged women, and somehow the instant gratification was important, the recollection of that, and something that just happened yesterday, which could be brought in. So there's a combination of, you know, much history and something new. And using it in a very unusual fashion. They did lovely things and made shapes and all sorts of things. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And Teresa, and I think Angela, you were going to speak after that. Is that okay?
My work with the elderly has been quite limited, but when I have worked with them, and I was working with early onset dementia, I think it was, but it was very, you know, it was run by the council, and we had a hall, and I worked with another dance therapist along with that. And we would do things in the center to get everybody organized. But what I found towards the end, and we were actually had the participants who were probably quite severely advanced. I mean, not that they can get there with their carers and stuff. And what I found, which was really interesting, is that they like to walk. So we would randomly walk around the hall. I would be on one side and the carer would be on the other. And we were able to randomly walk around and pass each other, and we had music. And it seemed like they just liked that. Even though it was in a confined space, it was safe. You know, it wasn't outside, so they can walk. And we were then able to add props and things like that. And it was quite interesting to see that need to be mobile, and connect with people, and to have people supported you. And that was really interesting. So
brilliant. Thank you.
yeah.
Teresa, did you say that was or wasn't in an aged care home?
It wasn't in an aged care home. What would happen is that the participants would be brought in.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah. So
I just wanted to highlight, it'll come up later, how wonderful it is. And I'm glad you have highlighted it with your example, to actually be able to physically move across and be supported in that way that you described. Yeah, that's very good. Thank you. And Angela, just finally, because we'll move on to some other things.
Yeah, I thought that experiential was just wonderful and brilliant in the way it just helped to highlight some of the points you were making earlier, and it was a direct experience of that. In that, I found like that I selected props that I was drawn to bring into my circle, highlighted for me that these these people are out of context, and yet when we bring things that are contextual for them, it helps to orient themselves back to what's familiar to them, and that familiarity then can evoke some feeling about how they're, whatever they're feeling at the time. Maybe like there'd be feelings that they may not have even tapped into before, but the familiar objects helps them tap into that and express that feeling, whatever it might be, a grief or a loss or a reminiscence, or whatever it might be. That was really important. And I could also appreciate that you chose music that we would relate to, and that was helpful for me. But it highlighted also that the selection of music that we bring into the DMT space would also facilitate that coming back home here, inside, into the familiar, into expressing me again, not me in the context of this institution where I'm like disoriented and a stranger, and who really knows me in this place anyway. Yeah, and that all of that happens without words. So it's not about, it's, yeah, that your experiential really highlighted all of that for me, and also that you gave us ample time. That knowing that I had 10 minutes helped me rest into something that I had time to explore that. And that it's so highlighted for me that in a session, it's not about how many different activities I bring in. It's like, now we do this, now we do this, not the chop and changing, but it's like giving space, so much space for people to just experience. So thank you so much. That was great.
Thank you. Thank you for your feedback too. Thank you.
Just another question. What also brought up for me earlier when you talked before we did the experiential is that, and you sort of touched on it, but there must be a degree from some of the clients and the residents of anger and frustration and not wanting to be there, and knowing that they don't want to be there and being put there because of whatever circumstances. I can see that being sort of a hard issue because you're in a institution, and what yeah, I mean, it'd be really interesting to sort of look at dance therapy and using that, getting the anger, because they might not be able to verbally um, communicate it. And they also might not physically be able to communicate it. And if they are able to communicate it, then they're restrained or taken away. So, that's a real issue that came up when you were talking about something. So I'm just and with my experience of just working with the young onset dementia, what was good is that there was enough space so they can sit out if they wanted to. They wanted to leave, then they had a carer that was able to take them out of the space and then bring them back in again or whatever. And they also had a choice of whether they wanted to come back the next week or not.
Yeah.
They were totally different sort of situations. So I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know if I really want to answer anything, but
no, that's fine, Teresa. That's great. That, of course, that's something that you would need to consider an intervention for, so if you felt that in your safe space, for example, that would be something that you would meet and work with. And it is every dance therapist's challenge to actually consider how they would meet anger in a client, and particularly with this sort of population. Thank you for bringing that up. That's good. Okay. I'll just keep going with the sharing, if that's okay. Yeah. Am I sharing? Am I sharing? Can you nod?
Yep, I could. Yep.
Yeah, okay. Here we go. So the other thing that I found I needed to find ways of doing was maintaining myself in that workplace, because you are really surrounded by quite confronting things, sort of that, because it's a time of life when you become invisible. The aged basically are invisible, and they're not really, they're quite dispensable. That's the general consideration in our society, isn't it? They're not revered as they should be. So one picks that up, and as a dance therapist, I needed to consider how I need for myself maintain my professional self-esteem, so value my work in that workplace, and maintain my enthusiasm. And I really found it important, because my work is seen and was often in a public place, to be supported by the team that was working with the elderly, so the carers and the activities coordinator particularly. So it's very important to speak and create good connections with the activities coordinator about her goals for the group, and being on board with them, and for them to explain what you're doing, and so that you have their support as well. And I think that flows through, from the coordinator to other people in the aged care, other carers. It's important to know the language of the organisation and what they have to follow as far as regulations, the sort of language that they use. For example, I've just mentioned one, quality standards, and that's set by the government, and they are, aged care homes are regularly audited, so be aware of that sort of language. Have a look on the internet, do a bit of research about the particular home you're entering, because they'll have particular goals, and they'll advertise themselves in a way, in a particular way, so they might be multicultural, and you'll be able to feed into that with your music, as some of you have mentioned, and other ways. Or it might be about providing varied activities, or whatever it is, you'll be able to use that to validate your work. And also by looking at the quality standards, you'll be able to tailor or see how your work fits in to those quality standards, so that you can actually present it as very valuable to the hostel. Also, of course, it's so important to write out your goals, your session plans, and any outcomes after the session, so that you know what the effect of your work is. I'm sure you already do that already, but it's one of those things that we need to maintain, and some hostels want you to write session notes for them. So I had to, because it is quite challenging sometimes, you really need to have faith in what you do, and faith that it does contribute positively to these people's lives. And I've just written down a few things here, and there's a huge way. DMT can offer a sense of expansion and freedom from confinement. Like so many people, not so many, but I've heard it often, we're in a prison here. It feels like a prison. So how are you going to get them out of the prison? You can use creative visualization and movement to imagine and embody. The thing is, with dance therapy, you actually embody it, and you get that sense physically of the experience that the resident can't access any longer, such as skiing, swimming, bushwalking. You can bring things from outside, even flying like a bird. I remember one client flew out of the window. She said, I feel like I'm flying out of the window, So that was a sense of escape and freedom from the four walls, or, you know, that sort of square architecture that they're in. Of course, sense of belonging, sense of reconnection. And through that reconnection that quite a few of you spoke about, they reconnect with their past self, someone who was valuable and acknowledged. And to have that seen by the therapist and acknowledged by you as a therapist is very, very important. Don't forget yourself, refill your own well, and regularly nourish your creative self by meeting with peers, dancing, guiding, exposing yourself to the arts, and attending workshops. So that's the main part of the talk. I did have a few other slides, which were things like, what goals can I focus on for an elderly population, and how do I achieve them? Would you like me to quickly go through those? Yeah, okay. And I can provide these for people who want them, and you can send them on if you want to, Angela. So individualizing the client within the group so that they feel they are more than a room number. So through personal interaction, highlighting their movement by various ways that we have, like mirroring, reflecting it, verbally describing, getting the group to copy their movements, setting goals for a particular person in the group that they can achieve. So maybe for 2 people each session. Get the group to help them extend or achieve or celebrate their goal. Highlight something that someone is doing well. So these are very basic things, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to teach you how to suck eggs, but I was actually just going through these as things that I did. So enlivenment is another goal, is to come alive, to have intent and purpose is part of coming alive, to become more responsive and expressive through movement. Moving makes you feel enlivened. So when you're not feeling very energetic, we all know that going for a walk or, you know, moving just brings you, gives you energy, basically. Personal interaction, sound, using things to drum, create rhythm, and look for associations so they become personally involved. And you mentioned quite a few of you using objects that bring back their past. Dance the goal of coming alive, or intentionality and purpose, which is opposite to flatness and immobility, etc. Use qualities like rain, wind, thunder to get varying intensity, such as using rubbing of hands, clapping, hard and loud, or using your chopsticks slow and fast to get different intensities for like you imitating the rain. So you can start really soft and that can be great fun in a group. And bringing out their passion or sexuality, and tango music's great for that. And using the extremities to express that, like their fingertips or their eyebrows. So that can be done in fun, and it can actually just bring an aspect that they feel they can't express anymore. And this is the bit that you spoke about, Teresa, experiencing the space differently so that it feels like less like a prison, and getting them to move across the space is really important if you can. And things that you might include in your report, your goals, how you got there, significant moments, what stood out for you and for the clients, expressive moments, taking photos, and assessing how much they got into the expressiveness or changed their breathing or had a sense of fun. So I've just quickly gone through these, but I'll just give you a bit of an example. For example, like just using things like a ribbon held and gently holding it in a group, in a circle. asking them, you know, what do you think this can represent? Can it represent the connections that we have in life? And these are the sorts of responses I got. First of all, it started, Ted, I'll just call him Ted, said, tell them down there to let go. It's so tight, we can't do anything with it. You want us to do this sort of thing, don't you? And he shows this flowing movement. And then, okay, I say, okay, let's hold it from underneath lightly. Let it run over your hands as you move to the music. And you might be swaying or something like that. And Rosa begins feeling it with her hands. And I say, well, I thought this ribbon could be symbolic of the connection we make in life. Could we talk about how we make connections in life? And Alice says, some things bring us together. Sometimes connections are fleeting, sometimes long-term. Fleeting connections are no less valuable than long-term ones. And then someone else says, I like connections that give something back. So she makes connections when she gets something back. And then Roma, it's like the thread that holds us and runs through all of us. So you get really sort of these exquisite moments. And then someone responds to Roma, who spoke about the thread that runs through all of us. And she says, when I look at that woman, when I look at her, it always makes me feel good. She's got such a lovely, pleasant face. And then Ted goes, I've got a good one for you. What do you think love means? And so on. So just from holding a ribbon and feeling it and putting some music on, they're the sorts of connections you can get in a group. So thank you very much for contributing, all of you, and for turning up. And I have to make a vow to those of you who are a teacher for me as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Bouthasina. That was brilliant. You highlighted for us so many aspects.
I can't hear you. Is that you there?
Can you hear me now? Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I was just thanking you for a brilliant presentation. You've highlighted for us so many important aspects of the work and gave us a direct experience of it. And although everyone in the room has experience in DMT and working with the elderly, for most of us, I'm sure there was something, definitely for me, something new that you highlighted, and I really appreciate that. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Okay, thank you, everyone. And we'll have another conversation in the third week of August. So looking forward to seeing you all then. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks, Bouthasina. That was great. I'm just going to stop the recording.